Gonna have to do a redo on that book. New corporate name, new book name. Gonna have Dan joining us here in just a few minutes. Hey, Dan.
Tim,
How's it going?
good. How you doing?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you well.
Okay. You like that ticker on the bottom, Strategy Talk with Dan Hillary?
That's nice. I like the rebrand. Big day. I'm super excited.
Yeah. Anyone who was tuning in a few minutes ago, I held up this book and said, this author is going to have some work to do, right? Maybe a little rebrand on the book.
Yeah, exactly.
So lots of good opportunities.
It would be
Uh,
fitting to just cross out the micro part and have that be the published book.
yeah. Well, now like all of the merch, right? All of these books are like instant collector's items, right?
Yeah,
So if anyone
exactly.
wants to buy this book for $1 million, and then I can just put the proceeds into into strategy
It'll buy
stock.
one MSTR share someday.
Yeah, exactly. So, um, whew. Anything else on your mind before we get into your latest post on X? That's, I guess. What are
I
your
think there's a
initial
lot
thoughts?
of unknowns. I think people are underestimating the amount of unknowns and ability for MicroStrategy to actually have substantive new information on this earnings call. A lot of people think, okay, it's just going to be run of the mill. They're just going to, issue some more debt and do some ATM, like whatever. But I think there's a lot of directions. There's a lot of unknowns, and I still think there's the opportunity for surprise, which is exciting as a shareholder.
Absolutely.
What do you think, Tim? What are your
I
thoughts?
I just love that the folks over at Strategy with the B logo
It
now.
feels weird, yeah.
Yeah. I love that their strategy is always on point. Like everything was ready to go, right? The sign was already up
Definitely.
on the building. The merch shop is live. I mean, there's like people tagging me on X with like swag for like, the TradFi vest guys and like
Yeah, that's pretty
for
funny.
like Gladiator to have like his golf attire, right? And so that's very fun. But yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. Even just the name up with Tesla and Google and Meta and Strategy. I mean, that part just from a branding standpoint, like drop the micro, it's cleaner, right?
Drop the micros, switch it to orange. Yeah, it cleans everything up.
Yeah, like are we OGs for wearing orange ties in 2024? Maybe, I don't know. But do you want to dive into some of your latest posts, kind of walking through different scenarios for this earnings call that's coming up here in less than 2 hours?
Absolutely, yeah. I think I can share my screen, or we can just go over it. What do you think's best?
Yep. You can.
Um, yeah, I'll share my screen. We can look at it, and then let me take it off screen, and we can just chat live. It's probably the best.
Yeah.
So I think my point here is I didn't have a whole lot of substantive kind of information. The point is there's a lot of ways in which I think MicroStrategy can go, right? Or strategy can go. There's this convertible debt issuance, and let me bring this chart up. The most important thing here is we're working on this assumption that they use around a 25% debt to equity ratio for their Bitcoin. That just means the amount of debt outstanding historically has been targeted to be around 25% of MicroStrategy's Bitcoin holdings. The wild card there is the price of Bitcoin, obviously. The price of Bitcoin changes. That's a moving target. It's never going to be perfect. But this time last year, MicroStrategy was around sitting between 25 and 30% debt to Bitcoin ratio, whereas right now they're sitting around 14% after they're sitting around 14% and then 13% after you include the preferred offering. So it's quite low, right? The leverage ratio is very, very low.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the real sort of the key thing that we're set up here for in Q1 and Q2 is the amount of debt issuance. And I think you said it, Tim, is like, okay, if MicroStrategy comes out and says, we're going to chew through the rest of the 21 plan and just issue as much convertible debt as we absolutely can, that's an auto bid on Bitcoin. So it kind of kicks the reflexivity back into the whole equation. And I want to highlight these target debt ratios. And this is kind of my working model based on them ramping back up to their current debt target. Their current debt target is just shy of 12 million bucks. Sorry, $12 billion. So they should be up between 10 and 12 billion worth of debt to hit that 25% ratio at the current Bitcoin price. Now, if they were to do that over the next 3 months or the next quarter, that'd be about 9 billion conservatively worth of convertibles. That does that obviously increases the outstanding share count, but regardless, these kind of include that in the calculations. But it seems like their Bitcoin holdings will be around over 550,000 Bitcoins end of Q1 if they just do a standard 6 to 10 or 6 to 9 billion issuance in convertible notes. But the real wild card, as you're seeing here, is if the price of Bitcoin continues to rise, their stack continues to increase, their target debt ratio at around 150K per coin and 570 coins is 21 billion, right? So what does that mean? That means, well, they have 18 billion left in the 21 plan. Like, could they empty the clip in Q1 and Q2 with the convertible notes? And I think that's the real wild card here, is if they're able to sort of bring to the market more convertible debt, more fixed income products than people are anticipating. And I think people are anticipating about, a typical 6 billion, maybe $2-3 billion issuances, then the gig could be up. Like, people aren't bullish enough.
Yeah.
But right, think about like what that would do to the price of Bitcoin. Like 18 billion worth of buys over 2 quarters would be massive. And they could do that. Like, I think my base case is 6. Like my bear case is 6. They need to lever back up. They absolutely have to lever back up. The 10-day trailing volatility of MicroStrategy is down to 40%. So,
and
like,
what was it at its peak?
At its peak, it was about 150%.
Okay.
I can pull that chart up for us right now. It's a really good visual just because obviously, as we know, the volatility is the vitality. So you really need that volatility high, like, no matter how you look at it. And the implied volatility of the options is still there for the longer dated options. But okay, can you see this, Tim?
1 second. Try it one more time, and I'll hit the button to show the your screen. There we go.
I mean, so the blue line is the trailing. So we can take everything else out of here. The red is the 100-day trailing volatility, and the blue is the 10-day trailing volatility. So it just takes a snapshot of the volatility from the past 10 days versus the past 100 days, right? And you can see how we're lower than we've been since October of 2023. So something's got to give here, right? Like, obviously their market cap's increasing, so like that could be part of the equation, but that low ratio is really kind of hurting them in terms of volatility. In terms of if we look at it reflected in the options market, the 60 days to expiration implied vol of the calls is still sitting just below 100%, so 90%, so that's fine. But we'd like to see that volatility increase substantially.
We got a question here. What do you guys think is going to be the key points of the earnings call? I mean, when I called you earlier, Dan, I was getting out of lunch, walking the streets in New York. It's a little chilly, but it's nice for a brisk walk. And I said, we were talking about a couple different concepts, and I think one you alluded to a few minutes ago was, what if they came out? And I'm not saying they're going to say this, right? Nobody knows what they're going to say on this earnings call in 90 minutes, but what if they said, hey, we contemplated this 21-21 plan for 3 years, but our new target is to execute all of it and wrap it up within 3 quarters, right? Something like that.
That would be massive. You're totally right. Then
it would just signal to the market that they're getting the converts out the door, they're finishing up the ATM, which is very funny that I'm even using the words finish up when there's still 4.5 billion on it or something like that. Can you walk us through, if you have the numbers, what they have out the door to date on the 21-21 plan and what amount of time that's been over? Obviously, it's been since the Q3 earnings call.
Yeah, absolutely. So they had 500 million outstanding, or maybe it was between 500 million and 1 billion outstanding ATM left before the 21-21 plan was announced. And so far they've used 4.5. So they have 4.3 billion left in the 21-21 ATM issuance. So that means they've used 26.5 or 16.5 billion of the ATM since the beginning. I have the weekly data if that's helpful as to how they've been using it, but
yeah,
we look over that.
Yeah, if you want to share, here we go.
So this is just the week by week ATM usage, and I like to look at these percentages. These percentages are just the percentage ATM used as a percent of the weekly volume of the stock traded. And it's just a good kind of frame of reference, right? Because the ATM is fully dependent on the volume. They're dripping this thing out into the market. They don't want to crater the share price. So they have to be kind of diplomatic. And let's look at the past couple of weeks. So last week, we know they didn't issue any ATM. And I was wrong here. So I had thought this had been a cash reserve. So the week of January 21st, they raised $1.1 billion, right? And they bought 10,000 Bitcoin. That represented about 11% of the weekly float or the weekly volume traded of the stock, which is incredibly high. So obviously that's going to act as a price suppressant. And we could already see that. I think Matt UTXO made a great point yesterday. He's like, look, the MNAV of fully diluted share count has increased from 1.7 to 1.9 just simply over a 2-day period of them not using the ATM kind of last week and the beginning of this week.
What, man? So would that amount of MNAV increasing increase?
Could we model it out forward? Yeah.
Yeah.
Could we say if they
yeah.
stop the ATM, will that continue into perpetuity?
Or even just during blackout periods. And, we're not here saying that any of this should be a tradable conversation, but the numbers just get larger as the numbers get larger, I guess is what I'm trying to say in a really simple way.
No, I think you're right. But also a key point I didn't mention there, Tim, is the MNAV didn't expand last week, right? Last week, they didn't use the ATM, but the MNAV was flat. They issued that announcement on Sunday or Monday morning when Saylor said, we didn't use the ATM last week. Boom, everyone knew it was a blackout period. The MNAV expanded on Monday. So a lot of this whole MNAV nonsense is sentiment trading, right? So I think you're right. And it goes back to your point. If he gives the market the nod, like, hey, we're laying off the ATM, we're switching to fixed income products, that's all they need, right? I think that will be a huge bump in the right direction.
So hypothetically, you could see that MNAV number increase if they're at a certain point done with the ATM and just continuing to issue converts. Is that fair?
I think it's fair because the MNAV is just, again, it's just the players in the market kind of speculating on like the supply and demand forces on the equity. And if he comes out and says, we're laying off the selling pressure into the market, people are going to get cute and start longing it again, I think.
Yeah.
And who knows when that flips around like it did before? Who knows if he's got the 4.5 billion of ATM to keep using, but it's at least bullish, right? I think.
Yeah. Do you have the numbers to go through what amount of Bitcoin MicroStrategy has bought per week starting after the last earnings call? Because I'm thinking, if on the higher side it was $1 billion a week. I don't know if it was ever 2 billion a week. At a certain point, if you just keep dripping that ATM, like the current ATM is done in, call it 4 or 5 weeks, if you're able to buy $1 billion a week and on mostly just ATM. And also, right, what happens to the price to earnings, MNAV, whatever you want to call it, alphabet soup, when you're not raising $16 billion in a quarter by selling shares? That is going to be interesting.
I completely agree. Yeah, at their peak they raised, what was it, 5 billion, 4.6 billion in a week. During November they're doing kind of 2 billion on average a week for like a month, and then dropped it down when things started going sideways. And they've been 1 billion raises the past, or the two first weeks of January, the 2 middle weeks of January. So I think that's super fair. The ATM could be done in 2 to 4 weeks. It seems like with an increased traded volume, it would make sense. Or, Ben Workman's got a really kind of forward-looking added or idea around that, which is just, the ATM will be used as a reserve to pay for the dividend for the preferred stocks. The preferred stocks will be issued via their own ATM for more capital raising, which would be way better for the MSTR Class A shareholders. So hopefully we kind of shift in that direction.
Yeah. We have a few questions, but before we get to them, and feel free to put any questions you have in the chat, it's definitely going to aid the discussion here.
Definitely.
What happens when the price of Bitcoin goes up by, simple example, 50%, right? Like $150,000 Bitcoin, and that collateral, that balance sheet number, that delevers.
Yeah.
Like they're using less leverage just because of the price of Bitcoin going up, right? Which would be better as far as being deleveraged while they're getting the rest of the converts out the door. Does that make sense? Or what do you think about that?
No, that makes total sense. That's kind of the weird dichotomy of the whole thing. Is like the price of Bitcoin rising delevers the balance sheet on its own, right? And what that does is ultimately makes room for more converts. If you were to, but I think they have a more advanced model for their leverage ratio, or they probably are modeling out future Bitcoin prices and the cycles, quite frankly. So I would be surprised if Bitcoin runs to 150, 160, 170, 180. I would be surprised for them to lever all the way back up to their historic high of like 30%, which would be like 30 billion in debt. So I think you're right that the balance sheet will automatically delever, but that just makes the case for kind of, a more aggressive ATM or convertible debt plan than just the conservative, like 6 billion back to their current leverage ratio, which would be huge.
Yeah. Let's see here. Will the change to strategy, meaning I guess the name change, have any impact on trading shares? I don't think so. Any thoughts there?
I don't know. I don't know if they'll change their ticker or anything.
But
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that they came out with a change in name, because it means they're trying to innovate and are forward-looking and trying to refine their own kind of identity as a company, which is what we need, right? The second the market starts pricing in the potential future cash flows on their Bitcoin stack, or just the validity of them becoming sort of more than just a Bitcoin acquisition machine, it's game over. MNAV is a thing of the past. So I really hope they hint at it. Okay, should we go to that, Tim? Or are there any more questions? Let's do questions, and then I have a couple things to say on that.
Yeah, as long as you're not going to forget what you have.
No.
There's
I'm
some
thinking
questions
about
in
it
the chat,
24/7.
and I also wanted to, because some guys in the office here were like, you know, they're saying AI and Bitcoin. Like AI could be anything. Like all of these guys are just like technology companies. I'm like, yeah, but that's really strategic, no pun intended. Like that's good as far as like having maximum flexibility moving
Mhm.
forward. Is like, yeah, it's all tech. What is Bitcoin? It's tech. um,
Exactly. Yeah.
so, like, that's not a bad thing, because what is AI? Well, it could be anything at this point. We don't really know yet.
And they're going to be the best capitalized company in the world, giving them the opportunity to pivot in any direction they see fit as the AI landscape continues to develop, right? Which is just massive. Like they don't have to decide what they want to be yet.
Yeah. Game for today:
Yeah.
buy a share every time Dan says MicroStrategy instead of just strategy. So I think somebody bought a few more shares at a minimum. Will FASB added into the next earnings call? Yeah, it's either going to be today or the next one. And hello to Laura.
I think next one. I'm. If I was a betting man, I would put my bets on the next one.
Yeah.
You know, Saylor's like it really. He said in an interview that they were going to adopt Q125. He needs to stick by his word. Like he can't have any surprises regarding anything with regards to the Bitcoin strategy. So I'd say they won't.
And there's the VAT, some tax stuff that could be cleared up that's not
Exactly.
cleared up right now. So that also kind of lends towards sticking to the plan of not announcing any FASB stuff today.
That's a really good point. Deliver the strategy for the big price candles. The volume of buying an ATM offering is a deliberate strategy to prepare.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we love the color orange.
Yeah, I think it was long overdue.
Is it possible that the reduction in volume of buying an ATM offering is a deliberate strategy to prepare for the big price candles that are coming?
What do you think, Tim?
I mean, volatility is vitality. So, I mean, to everything you've said, I mean, this is about as unvolatile as you can get,
Yeah.
based on where we've been historically.
I mean, yeah, and I'd agree. I'd say like, okay, blackout period last week, week before earnings, so you can't really read too much into that. But yeah, did they smash the stock when the volume was high and get the ATM out the door? Obviously, meaning price goes up big time, delevers MSTR, making future ATMs more accretive. Yeah, I think it seems like, I don't know. In the back of my mind, I'm hoping they're going to lay off. I mean, yeah, I think you're right. They'll probably open up a new ATM plan. They'll probably switch to the preferred. The preferred market's 281 billion. So the entire preferred shares market in the U.S. is about 281 billion dollars. They have, 500 million of that total market. Would they? I think as long as there's demand for the preferred shares, which there should be, I think the preferred shares are a really, really good tool they have. The ATM doesn't dilute those shareholders at all, really. It just gives them more of a claim in the case of liquidation over MicroStrategy's unencumbered Bitcoin. So, yeah, I think maybe they'll be moving away from the ATM because the ATM ultimately isn't. ATM forever isn't the goal, right? ATM forever isn't the goal. And they know that. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
But right now it's a race to get those Bitcoins as unencumbered collateral on Strategy's balance sheet. So that's the only thing. It was acquisition at all costs. Hopefully, moving forward, depending on how quickly that goes, it's going to be kind of prioritize the shareholders and create value. And how do they do that? They're dropping the AI hints. They're dropping the Bitcoin Bank hints. It's something we can't imagine yet, I think.
It's an AI Bitcoin bank in cyberspace.
Exactly.
Based on pristine collateral. We can go to, I think you had a few things you wanted to cover. And if not, or in addition to that, do you have on a sheet somewhere where we can walk through what would need to happen to get to $1 trillion market cap, whether that's this year or by the end of the decade? There's been a lot of chatter on X, a lot of comments, a lot of reply guys saying, hey, it's not going to happen this year, or, oh, yeah, Tim, it can definitely happen this year. And it's like, well, it's a 10X. So
yeah, I can share that, and we can just put the numbers in. It's like, that's the beautiful thing about this equity, right? Is it's like, it's all kind of, the inputs are very known. So it's just a function of MNAV, shares outstanding, Bitcoin price, and the way you get there, which is, ATM raise or convertible note raises. So yeah, we can model that out to figure out what needs to happen. In terms of the other thing I wanted to say SAB 121, huge deal, absolutely massive deal. And I think I was on a space with you, Tim, and Tad made a really good point. He's just like, this is now paving the road for a sort of Bitcoin yield strategy, whatever that may look like. I think it doesn't need to be that even that explicit, right? Something along the lines of, we move 10% of our Bitcoin holdings to JP Morgan, whatever it is, Morgan Stanley, to Mellon Bank. And that just signals to the market, okay, we're looking for ways to capitalize on this equity on our assets, which I think should kind of break this idea of BTC yield decreasing into the future, so you can't really put a multiple on that.
Yes. And I don't know from a regulatory and, risk standpoint where everything lies, but everyone remembers a few months ago when BNY Mellon got the waiver to be, the waiver from SAB 121 before it was overturned, and that they were able, I don't know the specifics if it was just for the Bitcoin ETFs maybe, but they were able to custody it in some way, digital assets. So it'll be interesting now if it's still too early, or when we start seeing announcements from Strategy or others about them custodying assets at BNY Mellon, which is just arguably a bigger name, more maybe reputational, trusted name than even Coinbase because of being around for 100 years.
Exactly. And just the signal it sends, right? You're totally right. It's like, okay, we're developing our asset holding strategy. It could develop into XYZ things. And that's all the market needs.
Yeah.
I'll pull up that sheet. Inputs here are Bitcoin price. I have it climbing to 220K next September as like a peak, then it flattens just for use in our model. Convertible debt, right now I have 9 billion worth of issuance in Q1. And then ATM is 1 billion a month from starting at the end of January, and then up to 2 billion. So these are all like super conservative, and this is fully diluted MNAV. So these conservative estimates get you to around 400 billion market cap in September at 220K Bitcoin. So MNAV fully diluted, this doesn't take into account the debt. So it's just the fully diluted number of shares, which is like 281 million divided by times the market trading price divided by their Bitcoin holdings, the value of their Bitcoin holdings. Right now we're at a 2.1. That, conservatively could go up to 3, right? In the case of Mania, or it could go up to 6. Let's say they do 12 billion. Okay, let's just say they do 12 billion of convertible debt issuance. Let's say they do 2 billion a month in ATM, right? These are just kind of fictitious numbers no one really knows, but very within the realm of possibilities. They've been doing over 2 billion a month for the past few months anyway. That with a 4 fully diluted MNAV gets you to around 600 million at 600 billion market cap at 220K a coin. So to get up to, that, to get up to that $1 trillion market cap, if you get Bitcoin up to 280,000 a coin, you get that fully diluted MNAV up to 5. I mean, you're there, right? 280K Bitcoin. If they do 12 billion of convert issuance, 2 billion of ATM per month, and a 5 premium to fully diluted market cap, that gets you to $1 trillion. So it's really not out of the realm of possibilities whatsoever. That's with the 680,000 Bitcoin stack.
Got it. And
So
I mean, there's been talk about like will they get to 1 million coins this year, which is arguably and maybe obviously aggressive, but you're saying if they
it's aggressive, but not out of the realm of possibilities. I mean, it's going to get tough, right? Because like I don't think he can just keep hammering the ATM and have the shareholder base like be okay with it the way he has. So that will have to slow down. Like if he was going to continue with the ATM the way he has been, you could say, okay, he's going to do 5 billion, 6 billion a month in ATM, but I just don't see that happening.
Yeah.
And again, the real wild card is the number of converts offered. If they do 12 billion out the door, 4 billions, or 3 billions, that's pretty much all you need. That and a really high Bitcoin price, 280, 300. That'll push you to the 1 trillion market cap for sure. And for reference, after all that sort of dilution, whatever you want to call it, that puts you at a $3,400 a share. So with these kind of targets and estimates, you get $3,400 a share at just shy of a $1 trillion market cap for anyone who wants to know how rich they'll be.
So can you one more time hit on how many converts they'd have to get out the door and how much ATM and the price of Bitcoin? Let's say the price of Bitcoin for round numbers is 300,000.
Absolutely. So this assumes no more preferreds. We're sitting right now at 471,000 Bitcoins for strategy, right? Price of Bitcoin right now is about 100,000.
Yep.
This model here assumes they're going to issue $12 billion worth of converts over Q1 and none after that, which is conservative, but what we're using for now, right?
And how many could they issue? They could issue up to 16 billion total on the current plan of converts, right?
Right. In the current plan of converts, they have 18 billion left. So they have 18 billion left, so they could issue up to 18 billion. This here is the target debt ratio based on these sort of assumptions. I see it, if they convert the converts that are existing, they could issue all 18 billion. If they don't convert the converts that are existing, then I think it would be unlikely because they'd be bumping up against this 25% ratio during a peak kind of euphoria, right? So at 180K Bitcoin, they're not going to lever up to 25%. There's just no way they would do that. So maybe do they have 20 billion of debt? Yes, but they won't have 28 billion or 29 billion of debt, which is their target ratio. So if they did 12 billion of converts, they're probably still sitting in the teens at a leverage ratio in the high teens at the end of Q1, which I think is where they'll be. I don't think they'll cross that 20% threshold. I could be wrong, right? That would be fantastic for everyone, but I'd be surprised. 2 billion of ATM, kind of conservative. You could say, okay, maybe they don't do 2 billion of ATM a month. They do preferreds instead. That kind of cancels each other out. But 12 billion of converts issued. This would represent another 2 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that'd be another 20 billion of ATM, 18 billion worth of ATM, which is kind of high, in my opinion. But the converts could be higher than 12 billion. So it's going to be it's a stretch. It's very doable.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to keep their foot on the gas, which they've demonstrated their ability to do so.
So if they get 12 billion in converts out the door by the end of Q1, where does that put the share price? If that's
they get 12 billion out the door by May, and they were, gently using the 2 billion ATM a month, that puts their share price at about 1,100 a share with 165K Bitcoin. So these are, in terms of price targets, right? My price targets are all based on MNAV and my assumptions of MNAV. So they differ a lot from this model depending on what you put in. But that MNAV has a big effect on your share price. At a 4 MNAV, working with those assumptions, you're at 1,500 share price. At the current MNAV, you're looking at a $771 price.
Got it. And you said that would be by maybe sometime in May or end of May?
Depends how aggressive, right, they are with those convertible debt issuance.
Yeah.
So last year they issued 3 converts, I think it was, in Q1, and the last one was at the end of March, middle of March. So I know a lot of Josh Mandel's strategy is predicated on the convert issuance being issued in March. So it may be the case that we get nothing in February, we get 2 notes out the door, 3 billion notes out the door in March, maybe another 1 in April and another in May. That gets you to the 12 billion in total converts. The price of Bitcoin's at 150,000, and there's some more ATM preferred shares out there. Like, we're in a really good place. End of, leading into S&P inclusion. It's all predicated on the price of Bitcoin continuing to rise, but I'm not really concerned sitting here around 100K, sub 100K. I think it's a pretty good place to be.
Yeah. Can you walk us through what could possibly happen by the end of Q1? We're sitting at the beginning of February, so less than 2 months from now.
Jan, Feb, March. Okay, January, February, March. End of Q1 would be end of March. Let's say they get 2 converts. So this model, let's say there's 120K of Bitcoin. I've got 6 billion worth of converts out the door, and another 4 billion in ATM. That's like pretty reasonable, right? It's hard to forecast out very far into the future, but I think end of Q1, if they had 2-3 billion converts out the door and no conversions of any other outstanding debt, plus another 4 billion in ATM, like that's not crazy at all, in my opinion. That with a 3 fully diluted MNAV, that puts you around $726 a share. And again, we're sitting at a 2.1 fully diluted MNAV with 120K Bitcoin. These are kind of the price. These are the price targets I like because they're very directly linked to that convertible note issuance. You can see how accretive those convertible notes are to the share price, and with conservative ATM and slight increase in market hype around strategy reflected in the fully diluted NAV premium, you can get up to high triple-digit share price pretty quick with conservative Bitcoin prices. But it's like anything in in the realm of human experience, right? You underestimate what's going to happen, or humans tend to overestimate what will happen in the short term and underestimate what will happen in the long term.
Yeah. I saw Punter Jeff in his post today had the current MNAV, so to speak, of like basically the Mag 7. It's like 10x to 20x to 30x, and then just going off memory, Tesla was like way above that. Like it was something nuts. Like I thought it was like around 100 or 132 like MNAV, or just something crazy that had me like asking chat like what the market cap of Tesla was, just to refresh my memory. It's like it's in the trillions, and we're only at 100 billion market cap right now. So
I think it's one of those things where the market's got to believe it. The market can't see the evolution of this strategy as a Bitcoin bank. It doesn't understand the different services they're offering, right? So they just see it as unproductive capital. And once the Bitcoin even hints at being productive capital, everything changes.
Yeah. And I guess having that be right in the logo and having that out from a marketing standpoint of like, we are a Bitcoin AI company, and it's the name change and like that's what the media can finally latch onto instead of kind of pivoting quarter to quarter about what you are and what you're going to be. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
And the intersection between AI and Bitcoin, right? Like no one talks, like people seem to all be experts on AI, but no one talks about the intersection of, digital money and autonomous agents. It's like, what, doesn't that seem pretty necessary? But
yeah. What do you think about the fact that Tesla adopted FASB? Their stock price, I think it was even just overnight, went up by like 4%. And then MicroStrategy has something nuts like 45 times more Bitcoin than Tesla has, maybe 47, whatever the number is.
I'm a FASB bear. I'm a FASB bear, so I'm not like, yeah, I think it's awesome, but I'm a FASB bear. Like, I think it's I think everyone who's positioned knows it's coming. And so I don't think it's unpredictable anymore. And I think it's awesome, but I don't think it's unpredictable. What I do think is unpredictable is the actual earnings that will be, listed, or the actual earnings per share at the end of Q1. And that's fully a function of the amount of convertible debt issuance for the rest of Q1. So while I don't think FASB itself is an unknown, I think the actual EPS is an unknown, simply because we don't know how hard MicroStrategy will go with this second half of the 21-21 plan. And so I think it all predicates on that. I really think that's the key. Anyone who's like a trader trying to figure out where the stock price is going to go, the answer lies in exactly how many convertible issuances occur between now and June, and how much of the debt is wiped off the balance sheet. And that will dictate the success of the company over the next 6 months.
So, Dan, you are able to foretell the future. That's a joke. None of this is financial advice. But when is the next stock split? Is there, since the majority vote was for the 33 billion shares, so like we have at least one stock split like that he can do based on the extra shares authorized.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key word. But like, it's just opportunistic, right? Like or is there like a fork in the road where it's like, oh, nope, this would actually be the exact right time to do a stock split?
I don't know. Like, if you look back last year, the stock hit $2,000 a share in March, and then they didn't split until August 8th, I think, or July 8th. I forget which one. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I don't know they're clearly thinking about it, but I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. Let's see. Bitcoin's down just under 1% right now. MicroStrategy is just like plummeting, like 335. It's down almost 4%. So maybe this is the beginning of the volatility is vitality, right? If you start at around $330 a share.
I closed all my covered calls today for the earnings call, so I missed out on a little gain there.
It happens, right?
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity to meet a few people in person for coffee, for breakfast, and I think it's bullish. Every strategy is different. By the way, Mark G really appreciates your conservatism. So yeah, I definitely agree.
I feel like that's pretty bullish, Mark. I'm glad I'm the conservative one over here talking about double the stock price, triple the stock price.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think it's, I've never tried to be bearish, but I imagine it's easier to be bullish. But then you kind of just, I don't know, when someone's like way outside the lines, just like 1 quadrillion market cap by next month, then you just kind of lose the crowd.
It's easy to be really bullish if you're just a spot holder, like long-term spot holder. It doesn't matter, right? But if you're like kind of trading around, which like I am kind of trading around, like I'm obviously a long-term spot believer and holder, but I do some trading. Like, you have to be realistic with yourself, or else you get kind of stuck. You get kind of caught up and you lose. You'll lose your shirt. So I try to keep both in mind, right? Super uber bullish long term, but also like try to be conservative in the short term.
Yeah, that's what I've been pleasantly surprised by is a couple of the guys that I've had breakfast and coffee with here in New York have said, oh, I just own MicroStrategy shares, right? They're not in levered long ETFs. They're not in options. They're just holding the shares. They're just, they like the stock and like everybody's strategy is different. But I thought that was like pretty illuminating to hear, right? Like you can scroll social media all day and, you know, maybe get something out of it. But when you actually are face to face with someone and they're telling you what their strategy is, and it's just holding strategy stock, that's
Yeah.
yeah.
It's been a winner, that's for sure.
Any closing thoughts or anything else we should cover before we, you know, let everybody get some snacks and pop the popcorn and get the, you know, the bottles of water on ice before we watch this earnings call?
Yeah, I'm super excited. I don't have anything else. I'm probably going to hop off here, Tim, if that's all right. Next
Absolutely.
3 minutes, but it's exciting. Yeah, really exciting.
Yeah, no, thanks for everybody for tuning in. We have over 2,000 people on the live stream right now, so not bad for just jumping on a whatever day it is, Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah.
And real quick, let people know, if they don't already, where they can find you on X and YouTube and anywhere else, and what you're doing from time to time with your YouTube videos.
Yeah, I'm just Hillary _ Dan, HILLERY _DAN on Twitter, and Tim and I interact a lot, so I'm just kind of trying to make sure we all are successful over the next 6 months.
And so we have the earnings call coming up at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, which sounds weird to say, right? Because you think you're still in trading hours, but you're not. And then however long the earnings call goes, till 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. Eastern, then MSTR True North with Punter Jeff and the crew tonight.
That'll be a good stream. That'll be a really good stream.
Yeah. So excited for that. On the internal call, Jeff said, he said, I want a little bit of time to kind of think through what happens on the earnings call before we go live. So I think we all share that sentiment. Like, all right, let's watch it and then take a beat and then discuss it. So that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
So
it's gonna be awesome. I hope there's just something we're not thinking about. I really hope we're surprised. I love like the last earnings call was so exciting, just being surprised by the 21-21 plan.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Dan, and everybody go follow Dan, and we'll see you on the earnings call, and we'll see you for MSTR True North later tonight with Punter Jeff.
All right, Tim, thanks. You're the man. I'll talk soon.
Thanks, Dan. See ya.
Bye.